morning, everybody.
Hi.
Hi. So welcome to week 10. Congratulations for making it this far. This has been definitely an interesting term, and I'm excited and although kind of sad to wrap things up because we've been at a distance. It's been, I don't know, kind of like refreshing to have sort of human contact in our class. So anyway, thanks for participating. It's been a pleasure. So I guess what I'd like to do today is check in with the schedule, review the final exam materials, and then have a look at Act 5 from The Winter's Tale. And then when we come back to The Winter's Tale tomorrow, I would like to talk about at least two things. One being the sort of pastoral imagery associated with shepherds and sheep shearing. And then the other one being the common characters. And I think those are related issues. So I definitely want to talk about those two things tomorrow. But I do want to talk about the end of the play today because I think it's the most memorable part of this play. When people talk about The Winter's Tale, this is the part they remember. It's the last scene. So I also have a couple of film adaptations of the last scene that I'd like to take a look at together if my technology lets us do that. So unfortunately, the Globe Winter's Tale was up for 2 weeks, I guess, and then they took it down. So anyway, it's no longer available, and I would love to have shown the ending of that one. But
it's actually available on YouTube, I think.
It was. I went into.
I was just watching it last night.
Were you really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't.
Let me see if I can find it. I'll post a link in the chat.
That'd be great, Connor. Thank you. Yeah, because I did like that production. And I'll talk a little bit about why. I watched the Barbican one, which is a Royal Shakespeare Company, which I liked pretty well. I just didn't like the last scene very well, and I can talk a little bit about why. And you can decide whether you agree with me or not. So anyway, that's where we're headed. Before we get started, does anybody have any questions or comments? Okay, so I'm just going to show the schedule for this week. So here we are in week 10, Monday, we're Zooming. We're going to talk about the final and The Winter's Tale. Tomorrow we'll talk about The Winter's Tale, and then there's no more Zooming. Tomorrow is the last Zoom moment. So I think when I was talking last week about what to do in week 9, I said the only thing you need to do is post the paper, but there is a Winter's Tale summary to do. So if you haven't done that, do take care of that one. And then this week, we'll be working on feedback on the paper 2 drafts. That's due Thursday. And my idea was that then I would have feedback to you and your peers would have feedback to you, and you'd be able to do a revision by Sunday. That would get paper 2 out of the way, and then all you would need to do next week is the final. So that's my plan. I have these drafts in this class, and then I have drafts in my grammar class as well. So I'm looking at my schedule with a little trepidation this week because I do want, but I want to get your feedback back to you first because the grammar students have until Wednesday of finals week to turn their revision in. So you're my priority. In addition to the feedback and the revision, there's one Winter's Tale post to do. And again, do take a look at the prompt in the discussion board. That goes to the discussion board. And there's the Winter's Tale quiz. If you want to have some extra credit for working with a tutor, make sure to get me that information so that I can give you the extra credit. And make sure to complete your course evaluation. Right? I want everybody to do that if you would. It would be so wonderful for me, for EOU, and for your other peers who whose feedback won't be counted if you don't get your voice heard as well. So please take care of that this week. As folks have told me, the link is in Canvas, so hopefully it's really easy to get in and do an evaluation for this class and your other classes. So once the paper 2 is scored, you'll have a really good idea of where your overall course grade is. The whole course is comprised of 1,000 points, which means that the 50 points of the final exam is about half a letter grade, right? So you'll kind of be able to see what that 50 points will do. Because the final exam is a final, again, I'm not overly picky about the writing of it. There's some things I'll look for in terms of content, but when we talk about it, you'll see it's relatively straightforward. I hope it's relatively easy or painless. So we'll talk about that momentarily. So what happens on my end of my grading is that I total everything up. I have a look at where your grade is and how close it is to other grades above it. So, I mean, if you have an A, I don't I don't work on your stuff anymore. You're done. But if you have something less than that, I usually try to see kind of where your grade is, and if you did a couple extra things, would it bump it up into the next level? And then I email you and let you know, hey, you have a B+. It's about 20 points from an A- and 40 from an A. If you want to do more work, here are some things you can do. And then I just keep grading in a crazy way until my grades are due 2 weeks from today. So if you want to submit more work because you want to bump your grade up, great. I'll just keep scoring until until I'm out of time. And then even after that, if it's needed, I can go back and change a grade. So I might submit a passing grade. Maybe you got a C+, you did a little extra work and got it up to a B. I would just make a grade change. And I don't know about what other professors do. I've desperately tried to have deadlines stick and I can't do it. So anyway, so we just keep working until we're done. So that's kind of how the end of the term will work. And you can let me know if you have any questions about the grade as it starts to emerge. Questions, comments, concerns?
I just wanted to say, Nancy, I was looking for the play, and it does look like they took it down off of YouTube, but they must have done that like last night because I was watching that in bed before I went to sleep, and I passed out, unfortunately, before I could finish it. But yeah, it was good what I saw of it.
It's a good
Unfortunately, it's not
production.
there. I
Yeah,
think what it is, they might be gearing up to perform it again, and so they don't have it up because they're performing it, and so they think that maybe that might cause more people to come and see it when they can't watch it online, I guess. I don't know.
I think two things. I think you're right. There is a 2020 production planned. And with the pandemic, I don't know what is going to happen with that. It looks like also they're starting to have a video library that people can pay to access, which is great because I'm sure they're closed right now and they don't have income from people coming to see shows.
Yeah, I'm sure that's part of it for sure.
Yeah. Then I think the other thing was what they were doing is kind of during the pandemic, they kept putting up particular old shows for a couple weeks, maybe just to get people's attention and try to get donations, which they desperately need. So yeah. So anyway, so if you saw part of it, so you got lucky.
Yeah, I kind of just caught like the first 30 to 45 minutes before I passed out, but
yeah, I really like the depiction of the Bohemia, the Bohemia setting but maybe you didn't get there in the first 45 minutes. So
yeah, I didn't, unfortunately.
Yeah, but that's okay. We'll talk a little bit about Act 5 today and see what we can do to I don't know, get some visuals attached to some of the stuff happening in the play. Okay, so let's take a look at the final exam. I've got it posted in Canvas now. And so essentially it asks you to go back to exercise 7, which you completed at the middle of the term, reflecting on your reading and how it was going. And then what I'd like you to do for the exam is just answer these questions that have to do with reading, right? So what reading strategies did you use? What makes reading Shakespeare different? How might your experience reading Shakespeare affect or apply to other difficult reading, right? How does The Winter's Tale connected with your life, right? So make a personal connection. And then what have you learned by attempting to read The Winter's Tale and other Shakespeare plays? So again, it's really reflective. I kind of want to know, again, this is like a 200 level literature course. So we've been exploring the kinds of work that professionals do, but I want you to go back and thinking about yourself as a reader, right? How does it work for you? What are the strategies that you're carrying forward? Maybe into future Shakespeare reading, maybe into Shakespeare performance for those of you that are in theater, and then into other kinds of reading you may encounter in your academic work and professional life. Because this is an exam, I don't care about grammar and spelling. It would be great for me to understand what you're talking about. So that would be helpful. The one thing I do want you to do, to make sure to do, is in the question number 4 is do what we've done with close reading, quote a passage and talk about it in connection with your thinking. So that's, I think, that's the only question that requires that type of work. So you are welcome to, you're welcome to submit this at any point. You may be ready to do it this week and that's fine, and then it's out of the way. Totally up to you. Okay, questions about the final?
Sorry, Nancy.
Good.
I was eating something. Just curious if is there any kind of set length or minimum length that we need on this?
No.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't think so. I just want to know your thoughts. So a sentence for each would probably be too little. So spend a little time telling me about each one of them, and yeah, and then of course number 4 would need the quote and the analysis of it. So
Do you want us to include anything from our exercise 7, or just kind of use that as a springboard?
you could, you know, if you could go back and look at it and discover that, yeah, you're using completely different strategies than when you responded at the middle of the term. Or you could go back and look at it and say, yeah, I'm still using those strategies. They're working well, or Shakespeare's really hard and I still don't have the right way to tackle it. You know, whatever it is you want to say about it, totally fine. Okay, so if you have questions, just drop me a Canvas inbox message. I have a grant deadline today, so I'm going a little crazy with my workload. So I probably I won't check the inbox today, but if you have a question, just send me an inbox message and I'll get back to you probably tomorrow or Wednesday. Okay, so let's do some reading of the play. I need to go and get it. So we'll be working with Act 5. And it's Act 5, Scene 3. Okay. So just as a recap, right, we had Leontes have his terrible paranoid moment where he basically imprisoned his wife for treasonous adultery. And his son died as a result. And Paulina announced that his wife had also died. And of course, he sent his baby girl out to be left to the elements, to the gods outdoors. And Perdita's husband took the baby and left the baby in Bohemia. He was subsequently eaten by a bear, sadly. And the ship he rode in on was sunk. So all the sort of ties around the baby were cut. Time comes in and intervenes, and 16 years pass. And the baby Perdita is alive and well in Bohemia, living as the daughter of a shepherd. And the son of Polixenes, Florizel, has fallen in love with her. And so we read the scene last week at the end of the week where they had the sheep shearing and, you know, kind of like a big hoedown, and lots of dancing and singing. And in productions, there's often a lot of sort of like peasant style dancing. The production that I looked at, which was the Royal Shakespeare production that I looked at as sort of my homework last week, had a kind of a funny sequence in it where the sort of rustic men are dancing around in their sort of big floppy pants, and they end up using vegetables to represent their sexual parts outside their pants, right? So there's like this sort of humorous moment where there's all of these carrots and I don't know what else, kind of flopping around. And anyway, so if you like that kind of humor, it was a pretty funny moment, and that was completely unexpected. So that kind of connects with the sort of pastoral, I don't know, springtime, life-giving power of nature, that kind of stuff that sort of the rustic people are considered to be more connected with. Anyway, so that was a funny addition to the scene that we read at the end of last week. Okay, so we didn't get to the part of that scene where Polixenes interrupts everything. And so, so the shepherd is getting ready to sort of marry, sort of common law wise, his daughter to this Doricles, right, who's the disguised prince. And Polixenes, takes off his disguise and interrupts the proceedings and says, dude, you can't marry this, basically lots of bad language, young woman, because, you're the prince and that's not going to happen. I won't allow it. And so Camillo decides to help Florizel and Perdita escape to Sicilia, where he thinks they'll have a positive reception. They end up going there, and of course they're followed by the whole rest of the cast, who can't seem to stay out of their business. So at first they present themselves to Leontes, and he's happy to see them. When and they claim they're married, and when the Polixenes arrives, they have to admit that, yeah, they're not really married. So just a little minor detail. Anyway, so what's kind of interesting in Act 5 is that we see this moment where they're not married. Leontes is really excited. Polixenes has arrived, and they all go off to talk to Polixenes. And then in Act 5, Scene 2, there's a reporting of the meeting, right? There's people talking about it. How did it go? Who said what? Are they married? So there's like courtiers talking about it, but it interestingly is absent from Act 5. The actual meeting scene is gone. The marriage scene, not there, right? So that's interesting. What we do get in Act 5 at the end is the whole party decides to come to Paulina's to see the statue of Hermione, right? So she's wants them to come over, have a look at it. She's excited because Perdita is alive. She's sad because her husband is dead. And so they're gonna, part of the celebration is gonna be to take a look at the statue. And this scene, I think, is like I said, the most famous of this play. So what I would like to do is read this. And again, I just better look at who's here. So I'd like to do the whole scene. And let me ask, let's see, Connor, can you do Leontes?
Sure.
Thank you. Sam, are you available to read today?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm using headphones today. That's why you don't get a look at me. And so it feels like I don't know what I'm doing.
Are you okay reading a role today?
Yeah, as long as you can hear me, I'm fine reading.
Yeah, I can hear you. Let me have you do Paulina.
Okay.
Keegan, will you do Polixenes?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Let's see. Alexa, can you do Perdita?
Yes.
Thank you. Elijah, would you do Camillo?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And then Brooke, would you do Hermione?
I can't read today, sorry.
Okay, thanks for letting me know. Okay. Chesley, would you like to do Hermione?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll go from the beginning to the end. So Leontes starts off, "Oh, grave and good Paulina."
Sorry, just setting up my mic. O grave and good Paulina, the great comfort that I have had of thee.
What, sovereign sir? I did not well. I meant well. All my services you have paid home, but that you have vouchsafed with your crowned brother and these your constructed heirs of your kingdoms, my poor house to visit. It is a surplus of your grace which never my life may last to answer.
Oh, Paulina, we honor you with trouble, but we came to see the statue of our queen. Your gallery have we much passed through, not without much content and many singularities, but we saw not that which my daughter came to look upon, the statue of her mother.
As she lived peerless, so her dead likeness, I do well believe, excels whatever yet you looked upon, or hand of man hath done. Therefore I keep it lonely apart. But here it is, prepare to see the life as lively mocked as ever, still sleep mocked death. Behold, and say 'tis well. I like your silence. It is the more shows off your wonder. But yet speak, first you, my liege. Come, it not something near?
Her natural posture chides me, dear stone, that I may say indeed thou art Hermione, or rather thou art she in thy not chiding, for she was as tender as infancy and grace. But yet, Paulina, Hermione was not so much wrinkled, nothing so aged as seems.
Oh, not by much. Oh,
So,
sorry. Go ahead, Polixenes.
Oh, not by much.
So much the more our carver's excellence, which lets go by some 16 years and makes her as she lived now.
as now she might have done, so much to my good comfort as it is, now piercing to my soul. Oh, thus she stood, even with such life of majesty, warm life, as now it coldly stands when I first wooed her. I am ashamed. Does not the stone rebuke me for being more stone than it? O royal peace, there's magic in thy majesty which has my evils conjured to remembrance, and from thy admiring daughter took the spirits, standing like stone with thee.
And give me leave, and do not say 'tis superstition that I kneel, and then implore her blessing. Lady, dear queen, that ended when I but began, give me that hand of yours to kiss.
Oh, patient, the statue is but newly fixed, the colors not dry.
My lord, your sorrow is too sore laid on, which 16 winters cannot blow away. So many summers dry, scarce any joy, did ever so long live, no sorrow, but killed itself much sooner.
Dear my brother, let him that was the cause of this power to take off so much grief from you, as he will peace up in himself.
Indeed, my lord, if I had thought the sight of my poor image would thus have wrought you, for the stone is mine, I'd not have showed it.
Do not draw the curtain.
No longer shall you gaze on it, lest your fancy may think anon it moves.
Let be, let be. Would I were dead, but methinks already. What was he that did make it? See, my lord, would you not deem it breathed? And that those veins did verily bear blood?
Masterly done. The very life seems warm upon her lip.
The fixture of her eye has motion in it, as we were marked with art.
I'll draw the curtain. My lord's almost so far transported that he thinks anon it lives.
Oh, sweet Paulina, make me to think so 20 years together. No settled senses of the world can match the pleasure of that madness. Let it alone.
I am sorry, sir. I have thus far stirred you, but I could afflict you farther.
Do, Paulina, for this affliction has a taste as sweet as any cordial comfort. Still methinks there is an air comes from her. What fine chisel could have ever yet cut breath? Let no man mock me, for I will kiss her.
Good my lord, forbear. The rudiness upon her lip is wet. You'll mar it if you kiss it, stain your own with oily painting. Shall I draw the curtain?
No, not these 20 years.
So long could I stand by an onlooker.
Either forbear quite presently the chapel, or resolve you for more amazement. If you can behold it, I'll make the statue move indeed, descend and take you by the hand, but then you'll think, which I protest against, I assisted by wicked powers.
What you can make her do, I am content to look on, what to speak. I am content to hear, for 'tis as easy to make her speak as move.
It is required. You do awake your faith, then all stand still, or those that think it is unlawful business I'm about, let them depart.
Proceed. No foot shall stir.
Music, awake her, strike. 'Tis time, descend, be stone no more. Approach, strike all that look upon this marvel. Come, I'll fill your grave up. Stir, nay, come away, bequeath to death your numbness, for from him dear life redeems you. You perceive she stirs. Start not, her action shall be holy as you hear my spell is lawful. Do not shun her until you see her die again, for then you kill her double. Nay, present your hand. When she was young, you wooed her. Now in age, is she become the suitor.
Oh, she's warm. If this be magic, let it be an art lawful as eating.
She embraces him.
She hangs about his neck. If she pertain to life, let her speak too.
Aye, and make it manifest where she has lived, or how stolen from the dead.
That she is living, where it were but told you, should be hooted at like an old tale, but it appears she lives, though yet she speak not. Mark a little while. Please you to interpose, fair madam, kneel, and pray your mother's blessing. Turn, good lady, on Perdita is found.
You gods, look down, and from your sacred vials pour your graces upon my daughter's head. Tell me, mine own, where hast thou been preserved? Where lived? How found thy father's court? For thou shalt hear that I, knowing by Paulina that the oracle gave hope thou wast in being, have preserved myself to see the issue.
There's time enough for that, lest they desire upon this push to trouble. Your joys with like relation go together, you precious winners all. Your exhalation partake to everyone. I, an old turtle, will wing me to some withered bough, and there my mate, that's never to be found again, lament till I am lost.
Oh, peace, Paulina. Thou shouldst a husband take by my consent, as I by thine a wife. This is a match, and made between by vows thou hast found mine. But how is it to be questioned? For I saw her, as I thought, dead, and have in vain said many a prayer upon her grave. I'll not seek far. For him I partly know his mind, to find thee an honorable husband. Come, Camillo, and take her by the hand, whose worth and honesty is richly noted, and here justified by us, a pair of kings. Let's from this place. What? Look upon my brother, both your pardons, that ever I put between your holy looks my ill suspicion, that your son-in-law and son unto the king, whom heaven's directing is troth plight to your daughter. Good Paulina, lead us from hence, where we may leisurely each one demand an answer to his part performed in this wide gap of time, such first we were deserved. Hastily lead away.
Thank you. So that's the I think the seminal scene, the scene that people remember is the statue coming to life. Any thoughts about that moment?
There's a question I have as to, and it's probably one that's come up many times. Has Paulina just been hiding her out for 16 years and then painted her to look gold, or is there actually magic at play? And I think it's a fair question.
Sure.
That's pretty good at doing quarantine. I mean, we've been on quarantine for just a few months, and I'm gone bat cuckoo crazy. So 16 years is a long time.
300 years ago, it might not have seemed so long, I guess.
Well, and maybe it was easier to hide out when it was harder to travel. I don't know. Yeah, my feeling is that Paulina has hidden her and stages this thing, but it's interesting the way she does it, right? It's almost like she's afraid that people will associate this moment with witchcraft, right? So she's very cautious about bringing her back, right? She does it really kind of slowly.
Yeah, she's basically all you non-believers or whatever. Maybe you should go ahead and exit stage left while I go ahead and reveal this.
Yeah, because she doesn't. I don't know. Does she? I assume maybe she doesn't want negativity at this moment. Like she doesn't want people to make a sudden judgment and ruin the sort of reunion moment.
Well, the other thing too is it seems as though she, at least with kind of the close reading of some of these lines, that it almost seems to hint that she's doing some kind of a religious holy rite to bring her back rather than witchcraft. Like that's kind of how she presents it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, specifically, the word chapel is used, so either for quite presently the chapel, or resolve you for the amazement. So we have a religious connotation where the word chapel is used. She, I think, earlier uses the point to say that that what she does is lawful.
Mhm.
So, if there was witchcraft during the time, I would think that wouldn't be lawful. And so if she's saying that this is a lawful art, then it's something that I would think falls in line with, a religious art, like she's calling upon prayer or some other thing to bring Paulina or bring Hermione back. So at least that's kind of my reading of it, is that she's trying to play it as a religious miracle, or she's trying to kind of skirt around the law of what might happen to her if they try and foist the charge of witchcraft on her.
Yeah, or on Hermione for being the product of that.
Right.
Yeah. Like let's
And
stop attacking
Paulina,
Hermione.
Jose Paulina there, she's like, well, now that my good deed is done, woe is me. I guess I'll just trail off into the nothingness and everything and go find my dead husband somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, because everyone else is happy, so she's a little disappointed or depressed at the end. Yeah, and Leon is a little bit, he's a little forward in saying, hey,
Well, no problem.
hello.
It's okay, don't worry, lady. I'm in charge here. I'm going to go ahead and just hook you up with the guy that I didn't like for however many years.
Yeah, here's a single guy. Get married. Solves everything.
And by the way, I am the law.
Yeah, and he's kind of like, get married and then let's go. So he's not
You would,
Go ahead, Chesley.
you would think that he would try to marry her to somebody who has maybe a little bit more status after what she's done. Like, wasn't Camillo a servant?
Yeah, they're gentle, gentle people, right? So there's different levels of servants that might happen in a royal household, and these are the top of the line, right? They're people, they're probably noble people already. You're right. You're absolutely right. He's not going to marry her off to the clown. Right.
I just want to say that, Connor, you made reading the play a lot of fun with how you changed your voice. Made it really easy to get in there.
Well, I appreciate that. I do a lot of games and things where I end up changing my voice a lot for characters and things. So it made sense to do it for voice acting as well. So
yeah, I just do that for my kids at home.
Well, I'm glad you liked it, and I'm glad you enjoyed the readings.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see Megan's been chatting. She says the insensitivity of Leontes bothered me a little. Oh, your husband died so long ago. Just marry this guy, right?
Yeah, that's pretty close, I think.
Yeah, it's a little harsh. Yeah.
I wondered too if there's a cultural kind of background to take into account there as well. Like, I'm not sure if there was some kind of maybe stigma associated with women whose husbands had died after during this time period. If they were seen as either widows and because there's certain steps to take for things like divorce and things like that. So if you're married to someone and then they die, are you still tied to that person and can you remarry? So I wonder if maybe what Leontes is doing here is he's making null and void her previous marriage so that she can become married again. But it's a hard thing to say. I mean, there's not really a lot of context to this. It's just kind of thrown into the play. So
that makes sense, though. Absolutely, because you are unified under God or the law as married and not available. So it would take the law, whoever runs the church or who or the king
or the king,
king to say, okay, you're right. I agree. That's null and void, and now I have the power to marry you off to someone else in my court because you both basically have the same equal standing.
Yeah, and not only that, but it's also a with the standing associated with that. She was married to someone before, and then that person died. Chances are that person was the breadwinner in her household probably, and if that person's gone, then she's probably been living in some form of poverty or another, given the time frame. And so if he marries her off to one of these well-to-do servants who are kind of in the upper echelon of his house, then, you know, in his mind, I guess he would be giving her a great gift, but in her mind, she might be thinking it might be like that. You know, on the one hand, I really like the idea of having money and being in this place, but man, I really wish I could choose for myself.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I sent your husband off to, you know, do my dirty work and he died. Don't worry. I'll just give you a new one.
Right. Right off the assembly line.
There is some language that suggests that Camillo has had feelings for her, but it's kind of interesting because he's been gone 16 years. So he would have had feelings for her when she was already married to another guy, you know, for Leontes to really know that. So there's a little bit of weirdness going on there. But I think one way to think about it too is that Paulina probably could not remarry without evidence of her husband's death. So with the return of Perdita and the, you know, the witness sort of testimony of the shepherd and the clown who were there at the moment when the bear ate him, now she knows that she is a widow, right? So she's been kind of hanging out not knowing for 16 years. So there may be
like
kind of stuck legally in kind of a limbo.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I was going to say stuck in a limbo where maybe she could assume that her husband, who sped off with the baby, chose to save the baby's life and is raising her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have no way of knowing because the whole ship went down. So it's possible they didn't even know that the ship went to Bohemia. So they wouldn't even know where to look. Yeah, he could have run off with the baby, offended by the, you know, by Leontes' choice. So interesting,
and
he didn't do
and knowing how his wife felt about it, I mean, he knew that his wife was adamant about that baby living and being accepted by the king. So he could think, my wife will forgive me. This is what she wants.
Yeah, it's a brave act. Yeah. Well, good. Okay, so I think I have time to show you a little clip from one of the productions. So I'm going to show you the one I like best right now, which is there was an outdoor performance from a city in California. So again, not really a very highfalutin performance, but the whole play is available on YouTube. And I really did like the depiction. So let me see if I can get to it. I just want to show you Hermione coming back to life. If you, it's this one, it's Shakespeare by the Sea. And I thought I had it all queued up, but maybe it's not. So let me see if I can get it where it needs to be. Royal peace. Oh, there it is. Okay, I think that's it. One thing to think about, if you know your Greek mythology, you might also think about Pygmalion, the story of Pygmalion, which inspired My Fair Lady, right? Which is about, in the Greek, it's about a sculptor who makes this who carves this beautiful woman, and she comes to life and she's sort of perfect for him because he made her that way. So there, and My Fair Lady is, if you know that musical, is about a flower girl who's being, you know, sort of class-wise restricted by her language. And the main character takes her in and teaches her English, right? So sort of reshapes her into a lady. So I don't know if this Hermione coming back to life bounces off that for you in terms of intertextuality, but there may be some allusion to the Pygmalion story. Okay, let me see if I can show this. I think I have to, hold on a second. Optimize. Okay.
Magic in thy majesty.
And give me leave to implore your blessing, dear queen, that ended when I but began.
Oh, patience! The statue is but newly fixed, the color's not dry. No longer shall you look on it, lest your fancy should think anon it moves.
Let be. Let be. Would I were dead, but still, methinks... What was he did make it? See, my lord, would not you deem it breathed, and that those veins did verily bear blood?
Masterly done. The very life seems warm upon her lip.
I am sorry, sir, to have thus far stirred you, but I could afflict you farther.
Do, Paulina, for this affliction has a taste as sweet as any cordial comfort. Still, methinks there's an air comes from her. What fine chisel could ever yet cut breath? Let no man mock me, for I will kiss her.
Neither forbear! Quit presently the chapel, or resolve you for more amazement. For if you can behold it, I'll make the statue move indeed. Descend, and take you by the hand. But then you will think, which I protest against, I am assisted by wicked powers.
What you can make her do, I am content to look on. What to speak, I am content to hear. For 'tis as easy to make her speak as move.
It is required you do awake your faith. Let those that think this is unlawful business I am about depart.
Proceed, no foot shall stir.
Music! Awake her! Strike! This time, descend. Be stone no more. Approach. I'll fill your grave up. Nay, stir. Come away. Strike all that look upon with mark. Bequeath to death your numbness, for from him dear life redeems you. Start not, her actions shall be as holy as you hear my spell is lawful. Do not shun her again, my lord, for then you kill her double. Nay, present your hand.
Oh, she's warm. If this be magic, let it be an art lawful as eating.
That she lives, were it told you, should be hooted at like an old tale, and yet it appears she lives, though she speaks not. Mark a little while. Please you, fair madam, to interpose. Good lady, turn, our dear Perdita is found.
You gods, look down, and from your sacred vials, pour your graces upon my daughter's head. Tell me, my lord, where hast thou been preserved? Where lived? How found thy father's court? For thou shalt hear that I, knowing by Paulina that the oracle gave hope thou wast in being, have preserved myself to see the issue.
Go together, you precious winners all. Your exaltation partake to everyone.
Okay. So I wanted you to see, that's my favorite one. Isn't it lovely?
You know, it
Yeah, I
actually
really
brings...
liked it.
Oh, go
Sorry.
ahead. No, you go ahead.
I said I really liked it.
You know, I just realized something very interesting about this, and it actually makes the concept that maybe Paulina had her hidden away a little more clear, because she specifically says that she mentions the Oracle of Delphi being, you know, basically naming her child as true, right? And if she wasn't, you know, awake or around when that information came about, how could she know it?
She seems, when she steps down, to know what's been going on. And I'm assuming that Paulina has told her everything, you know.
Right.
Given her the news. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of the funny thing, is because if she was a statue and she was asleep, and this is a miracle that, you know, she's coming down off of the steps, you would think that she wouldn't have any knowledge of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the way that I kind of interpreted it, and like that would explain how she would know if she was a statue, is because like I kind of thought that it was a statue, but then her spirit went into it, like Apollo granted her life or something.
Ooh, I like that idea.
That's a really interesting reading of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen the Globe Theater production, and like I said, I just viewed the Royal Shakespeare Company one, and I think like the reason I like the Shakespeare by the Sea adaptation best is because there's a real joy in that moment, and I think the other ones are sadder. And of course they should be sad because they've lost 16 years of what they could have been together. But I think they captured a really lovely kind of joy in that reunion moment for the family.
Well, you might think that the reunion would be a little bittersweet anyway, because, you know, they lost their first child also. I mean,
Yep.
the boy's dead. So if you know, you would think that at least Hermione would feel some kind of, you know, apprehension about reuniting with Leontes over this. But, you know, I guess the fact that they have a daughter is perhaps what redeems that. I'm not quite certain, but it's, to me at least, it seems a little too much is swept under the rug and just kind of ignored at this point.
Yeah. Well, I'm watching the clock, so we're out of time today, but think a little bit about the ending and we'll talk about it tomorrow. As I said, we'll talk about the pastoral and the common characters. And if there's anything else about the play that you have questions about or want to look at again or want to interpret, just bring those ideas with you tomorrow. Cool. Well, if there are no other questions, have a great afternoon.
Take care, Nancy.
Take care. I'll see you tomorrow.
All right. See you tomorrow.
Nancy,
yes.
Go ahead, Sam.
I was just saying goodbye.
Goodbye.
I used that comma trick that you're telling me about in grammar class. I deleted a lot of commas today.
Yay! So are you feeling better about that?
Yeah, I'm feeling more confident there. There was a couple that I was kind of unsure about, but like I might bring that up with you. Oh wait, we don't have that class anymore, huh?
We won't be meeting again, but you and I could meet.
Okay.
So, yeah, let me know if you want to talk more about that, because we could look at some of these examples that you're working with.
All right, thank you. And we could also always talk next term too, although I guess that's pretty far away.
Or we can just look at commas in the stuff we're doing next term.
Yeah.
So that might be fun. Okay, fun. Yeah, yeah, great. Well, thanks a lot, Megan.
Have a good day.
Have a good day.